Hey there, film fans. I'm Jeff.
I'm Dave.
And I'm John, and that sounded weird to us. But welcome back to The Love of Cinema, a pod in which we'll challenge one another to discuss movies, both new and old, with a strictly positive critical eye.
You know, that's right. All right. So that's no negative criticism, people. I listened to a podcast today about an award show person making predictions, and they just sounded like the most pretentious assholes. And we hate that here on the podcast. So we are that's not for me, though. So,
Yeah.
So we are trying to keep it positive, people. Anytime we say something negative, as apparently I did, you're going to hear that buzzer. That means we're drinking. We would love for you to drink along while we talk about movies, people. That is all.
So, pour yourselves a glass and let's give it up for a film we love and a film that might need some love. I mean, according to the Razzies, it needs some love. We'll see what happens.
According to the Razzies, yeah, but according to the Oscars, they might both be nominated. Oh my gosh. Then the Oscar nominations will have come out by the time you listen to this podcast. We are recording on Sunday night, the 14th of March.
Yes.
Not to give the game away, but we are recording live on Twitch and Facebook every time this week except for next week. Thank you, John. And so you can check us out live. But yes, by the time you hear this, you will know who's nominated for the Oscars. But we'll get more about what our segment's about and why I'm giving you the setup in a second after John gives us some shout outs.
Shout outs. We got a beer sponsor. His name is Carlos Barroso. The handle is C Barroso Bar 2019. That is CBARROZOBAR 2019. And we got that music on this every single episode. Is provided by the same artist. The artist's name is Dasein. That's Dasein, Dasein. If you're digging it, head on over to soundcloud.com/Dasein-artist, and you can download all these tracks for free. Get on it, Jeff.
Yeah, I'm gonna wait a second before we get into our Oscar Razzie segment. But first, let's go around. Have you guys watched anything? We got a lot to do today, so let's try to keep it tight. But have you guys watched anything this week besides our movies that you wanna shout out for the people? Dave?
Yeah, I went through. I'm actually halfway through the final season of the episode. I finally went back to American Horror Story 1984, and it is good, cheesy fun as always. And we discovered by accident a series on Netflix called Daybreak. And for those of you that haven't seen it, Daybreak is basically The Walking Dead crossed with Ferris Bueller and Kick-Ass. It's, I mean, pop culture references flying. It's even got Matthew Broderick in it, for fuck's sake. It's hilarious. We turned it on we turned it on for like one episode and just binged the fuck out of it. So yeah.
Jesus.
Nice.
John, you been watching anything?
Yeah. So after our last week's episode, we talked about The Witches, and Robert Zemeckis directed that. I wanted to redeem that a little bit, so I watched one of my favorite Zemeckis films, Contact, either that night or Monday night. Jodie Foster. That's one of my favorite Zemeckis films. I like. He had that whole span in the '90s that I'm a huge fan of. That's probably the last of the '90s ones that he made that I'm a huge fan of. I watched.
I only ask because that's not a popular choice amongst a lot of other film goers.
I know. I really like that one. Sci-fi nerd over here, as you know. Yeah. To all those guys, I watched Logan, which was I saw that in theaters, and I hadn't seen it since in a long time. You mentioned the Wolverine last week. I went back. It was good.
Did you watch the black and white one or the original?
No, I watched the regular color one. I think it's on whatever. I can't remember what it's on right now. And then the only thing of note that I watched other than that, my father had never seen Chinatown, and he was visiting. So we watched Chinatown. Really good watch. I hadn't seen that in a long time, and it worked out really nicely because the night before that, totally randomly on my own, I watched Steven Soderbergh, Roger Deakins, and a couple other filmmakers break down Chinatown in this YouTube video. So I just watched it. My dad was asking about it the next day. I was like, we got to do it. I had a great watch. That was probably my third or fourth time seeing that movie. It's still such a good one.
I mean, they still throw that out as like an example in screenwriting.
Robert Towne wrote the fuck out of that.
Yeah, it was one of the first ones where it just doesn't end well.
Yeah.
Outside of
I know that's like where that comes from, right?
Yeah.
Like forget about it. Yeah. So good. Anyway,
Alec Baldwin had a guest on that wrote a biography about. Well, he's a biographist, a Hollywood biographist, but he wrote about Chinatown. So I was listening to a pod about that today. Man, it's in the air.
Yeah.
I watched two things. First of all, I watched Borat finally, and I kept hearing the first one. Yeah, I kept hearing the first one was better, but there are some scenes in that are shit, that fertility dance. I was trying to work out while I watched this movie, and it's really hard to work out during the full.
We will wow them when he says we will wow them.
There's so many great. Oh my god! So Borat,
my moon blood.
And then I watched It's a Sin on HBO Max, which I had never heard of, but I heard it on a different podcast, and it's about it starts out as a young coming of age comedy, like fun party thing set in London in the early 80s, and then it very quickly becomes about the AIDS outbreak in London. Neil Patrick Harris and Stephen Fry have cameos, but it's about the young guys and how they go from like having the most fun time ever to, starting to live with AIDS and stuff. It was really, really, really great. 5 episodes, HBO Max. All right. So the Razzie nominations are out. The Oscar nominations are coming out tomorrow. This is our 10th week of the segment. It was the best of film. It was the worst of film of 2020, where we pair a supposedly good film that may be nominated for Oscars with a film that may be nominated for some Razzies. The disclaimer is that we didn't come up with these lists. These were based on odds makers. Now that we're seeing the nominations come out, we did a pretty good job, or at least our odds makers did. And this is the first week where both of our films might be nominated for Oscars, even though one is really a Razzie film.
Yeah.
So those 2 films are, of course, One Night in Miami, directed by Regina King. It is about the one night that is based on a true story where Muhammad Ali, then known as Cassius Clay, Malcolm X, Jim Brown, and Sam Cooke all spent a night together after Cassius Clay became the heavyweight champion of the world, one of the youngest ever. I think he was 21 at the time.
22.
And then our second film is going to be Hillbilly Elegy, people. Hillbilly Elegy, which is a movie about why Trump voters didn't want to vote for full health coverage, but they do want coverage. They just don't want to pay for it, but they don't want universal health coverage. Make sense out of that. Just stay the fuck out of our business, people. No, actually, the real thing about Hillbilly
was that
Elegy
buzz for what you said, or was
it
it the T word? I could have been either.
The movie actually got a lot of international acclaim when Brett Kavanaugh said he watches it as pornography when he wants to have sex. So that's actually how this movie got really popular. So that's going to be our Razzie film, and also an Oscar film, apparently. No, I'm not.
No.
That movie justifies everything Ben. This movie justifies everything Ben Sass has ever done with his life. His Hillbilly Elegy. Anyway, people, we're going to get to that one later. The other bit of news besides the Razzies is Netflix, people, has just announced that they are coming after people who are doing password sharing. They realize there is free money, and they are now ready to cash in on their capital, where people won't just run streaming. They can do the Disney World thing, people, where they can raise the price and more people will show up. That is right. It is coming. I don't know when, but they are going to start notifying you if you are not in the house as the owner of the account, and they're going to say, we're on to you. Yeah, and they're going to force people to get their own passwords.
I don't think they've thought this through, to be honest. I don't know how that works with downloadable episodes. Like, if you download an episode to watch on the train or the plane or something, is it just going to not let you watch episodes outside your house?
Or I've been thinking about that all week. Are they going to
restrict it to devices?
Can I really not watch using John's Netflix on my iPad in 10 states? Like, I don't understand. Stupid. Like, are they really not going to let me do that?
I mean, the CEO of HBO once gave his password and login out on air.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm sure he changed the password after a week when everyone was hooked on all the fucking shows they watched. But
wait, was that Ted Cruz's porn password, or is that? No, that was. Sorry, you're right.
No, Ted Cruz's porn password is 12345. It's the same combination I have in my luggage
so far on this episode.
All right, I'm saying that because our second film, Hillbilly Elegy, is on Netflix, which you can watch before they come and tell you to stop using your parents' account. All right, people, we're going to get into our first movie, which is One Night in Miami. One Night in Miami. As I said, this is directed by Regina King. If I'm not mistaken, it's her first time directing a feature film. It was written by Kemp Powers, and it's based on Kemp Powers' play, which he wrote a long time ago. He wrote many years ago, and has been performed several times. It has a very young cast with some recognizable faces like Aldous Hodge playing Jim Brown, the legendary football player, perhaps the best football player of all time, according to many sources. You also have Broadway star and television star, who is now a full-time fucking bona fide movie star, certainly after this award season, Leslie Odom Jr., holy shit, he was good as Sam Cooke. As Cassius Clay, you have Eli Goree. And then you have Kingsley Ben-Adir in the Malcolm X role, who probably works as the lead in this film. That is the four of them. You also get some other familiar faces like Lance Reddick, and Michael Imperioli from The Sopranos, people you'd recognize if you saw. And yeah, let's see. This is about the one night they spent together in Miami after Cassius Clay won the heavyweight title bout and apparently was ready to party afterwards. Like I would totally be ready to do after someone punched me in the face for a while. But as he said, he didn't get hit very hard or very often, so he felt pretty fresh.
Yeah, I think the thing was he really did. No one thought he was going to win. He didn't even think he was going to win.
You never know with him based on anything. If you ever like follow him, you never really.
Yeah.
He doesn't let. Even to his closest confidants, did he ever say like, "Oh, I'm worried about this one"? Like, so anyway, we're not talking about the plot. There really isn't much of a plot of this movie other than it's the four of them getting together. This takes place in 1964, very early in 1964, if I remember correctly. So Sam Cooke dies in 1964, and Malcolm X is assassinated in 1965. So for context, this is a very important time. Also, the civil rights movement, right? So Malcolm X, who is just in the process. Now, this has changed a little bit in the movie, but Cassius Clay is a Muslim by this point, and he is joining the Nation of Islam and about to change his name. This is all happening at the same time. So this is a very momentous night. This is we don't really know what they talked about, but like this was a very important historical moment, and it is cool that it was able to be immortalized this way. So that's it. Again, I'm not talking about
in the
plot.
room when it happened.
So yeah, shit. I listened to some pods recently to get some context on this, but I'm going to leave it there. Let's go to you guys. First impressions. What you got?
I held off. This has been out on Prime for a while, but I just watched this a couple of days ago just to have it as fresh as possible. And my first takeaway was that, it was super well written and well acted, and it was it's kind of exactly what you think it's going to be. And I don't mean that as a bad thing. I mean, you're going to hear four icons who maybe you like individually or already know some about just because you're a human. They went to school and you've read and you're not an idiot. But you're going to hear they do a good job. The writing's so strong that they do a good job of breaking down the argument that you're kind of just sitting there watching unfold the entire time, which is how do you choose to make a difference, especially when you have a platform? So obviously, all four of these men have a very large platform that is all their own. They're all in something different from each other. And it was fun. I thought they did a really good job of, maybe fun's not the right word. It was very informative. There were some powerful moments. There were some funny moments.
There was fun. There was definitely fun.
I think fun is the right. Like this doesn't only make you laugh; it makes you smile a lot.
Yeah,
so
I thought it was excellent.
But there are dramatic moments, but still, they've managed to balance it expertly.
Yes, which I needed, especially. There's a lot of good cursing in this film, which makes it have a pedestrian feel to the dialogue, so it doesn't sound like four icons are speaking highbrow to each other. Really four powerful black men during the civil rights movement. It didn't sound like that. They did do a good job of, especially everyone other than Malcolm X, speaking as though they would to each other and so desperately trying to get back to, can we just hang out? And Malcolm relentlessly trying to get them back to that topic of conversation. So the actors did a wonderful job, but I'm going to credit the playwright for that. Regina King, this is her first feature film. She's done a couple of TV movies and a bunch of television, I didn't realize that. I had to look that up. I didn't know how much she had directed before. It was beautifully shot. I did like a lot of the cinematography. I did like a lot of her choices. I think the only thing critically that I couldn't stop thinking about was that, just like with Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, it is hard to get out of the fact that this is a play. It did often feel like she was, they did their best to try to move the camera around and maybe get them out of the room whenever they could, the hotel room. But at the heart of it, it is still, I'm still going to say, I think it's a little limited because it is mostly people sitting in a room talking a lot to each other. I didn't dislike it for that reason, but kind of the same things we were talking about several weeks ago with Ma Rainey's. I was kind of wondering if there were more interesting cinematic ways, if they had thrown the script away and just used it as based on the play, as opposed to a play adaptation. I kind of wanted to learn a little bit more about what these guys were going through with that wasn't happening in that particular night, and then have it all feed back into this night. But I don't want to sound like it was negative. I really did enjoy it. I watched it wide awake. I did not check my phone once. I enjoyed every moment. I wanted to keep hanging out with them. And if that was what they wanted to do, I think they achieved it really well.
It's a solid review. I disagree with the play thing. I feel like this did this way better than Ma Rainey's.
Nice,
to be
dude.
honest, just with
I'm with Dave, John. I'm with Dave.
Also, like the set design of the room itself it just has depth for miles. Like there's stuff that for them to shoot behind. They also did this really awesome thing I loved where sometimes there was someone talking, but the camera was not focused on them. It's focused on the person's reaction, and it's like they were drawing your eye. I feel like it's sort of like what they tried to do in Les Mis with the camera and failed. But it was this in the fine.
Oh boy.
In this, it was done beautifully. Like there was so many times, and there were a few times there where they cheated the line. Like they really used the camera beautifully. There's like
they fucked with the line really intentionally a few times.
Yeah, Temi Riker. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I'm sorry if I'm not. Is apparently a master at shifting this line because they were like creatively using pans where like you've established your line here and then all of a sudden you cut here, but the camera then shifts. And so your new line is now here. And like never once did they really cheated. It was done so subtly. If you weren't someone that's sitting there going, did they just cross the line? Like you wouldn't even notice they did it. Yeah.
I think you did. We're filmmakers, of course, so we noticed that technically they were doing it, but I didn't feel like I was being pimped into some emotional reason why they were doing it, even though I know why she was doing it. It was a shift in point of view in that scene, but it was handled in a very mature way that you didn't think like, okay, here we go. Between
that and the shifts in focus of like not necessarily the person speaking is the one that you're focused on with the camera. Like all of that led to like utilizing the camera as I want to highlight this person's reaction, but it's not like we're ramming that reaction down your throat. It was subtle. And so I feel like it was a really good use of direct-to-camera. Like the cinematographer and the director really worked together. I love that this is her first feature film because way to come out swinging.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, it was... I feel like there's a lot of good here.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, me too. And I hate to compare it to another movie. You know, it's I don't want to do that, but I do agree with you guys. If you pushed me into a corner and said which play was adapted better, this one was adapted better, I think, than Mon Rainey's play bottom. But more than anything, I feel like I think I could see her whiteboard thinks of like, these are my traps. This is what I'm trying to achieve. I think what she was going for is how do I turn them into men and not icons and yet raise them up even more because of their humanity? And I think she fucking nailed that. I never felt like she was pushing that. Again, the writing had a lot to do with that, but I felt she handled the dialogue and the staging well. And the performances were just so solid that it didn't feel like I was sitting there waiting for speeches from really famous people in history. And yet we got them because they were just talking from the heart. And I just thought she fucking nailed that. They fucking nailed that. Everybody fucking nailed that.
If you look at the poster, they've put the characters that are in the play, like Malcolm X, Muhammad Ali, Jim Brown, and Sam Cooke. The bottom one should be you, because the camera is the fifth person in the room. You become the fifth person in the room interacting with these people.
I kind of felt like I was I think one of my favorite small characters was the fanboy who was guarding the door outside.
Yeah.
I was just listening to the door.
Yeah.
Awesome, dude. Jeff, what'd you think?
Yeah, you know what? This movie, I knew I was going to like it. Or at least I had that gut feeling. Like, it's not like I was rooting for it, but I really felt like it was going to be good for me. But I'm a huge athlete fan. Wow. I'm a huge fan of sports. So Jim Brown is such an icon to those like NFL purists who, have recency bias. And this person, there's a whole thing, especially with running backs, where they would come in and Jim Brown led the league in rushing 8 out of 9 years that he ran in the league. And then he had to retire early. But if they paid them the way that they pay people now, he wouldn't have retired. And Malcolm X, because he's an epic figure in history. So how do you basically what I'm saying is this could have been 4 different biopics, or this could have been one just cramped, over the top, overdone, emasculated biopic, where it's like, by trying to be so, as John was saying, by trying to like take all of these icons and make them iconic, it would have ended up like you would have had to sacrifice so much, and then it would have ended up pulling them down. Is what I was trying to say. And what this did instead is it took ideas about them and what they were going through at the time and just fucking running with it. So, for instance, the most iconic figure in all of this, if it's not Malcolm X, is Muhammad Ali. Is probably the most famous athlete of all time, and he's 22 years old, and he's young and chipper and smiling and joking when he's in public or on camera. He's giving you all of the lines that you would expect from Muhammad Ali. But in the room, and I actually recently watched a really short clip that ESPN did of Jim Brown going back to the hotel. So this hotel was originally segregated. So in 1964, it was a black hotel. White people didn't stay there. It's called the Hampton House Motel. And it was in the African-American, like over-torn neighborhood of Miami. And Muhammad Ali was just like a kid who just want to fight, and he just wanted to like party the same way that fucking like Harry Styles would have, or I know he's an icon going through civil rights, which is something that I don't think any of the three of us can really like grasp enough to speak on, but this is an icon beyond anything, plus with the racial lines that he had to cross and handle and all this kind of stuff. Just a kid. And in the Jim Brown segment, he just kept saying that. He was like, this dude was just always in such a good mood. He was always so giddy. He was so much energy. He was so happy. But what we see of him is what the media has portrayed him as, which is this hardliner Vietnam War, dissident who is basically saying F you to everybody. That's not true. And so to take that moment and just be like, you know what, fuck all that other stuff, rather than cramp it in so that you can get all you need to know from Muhammad Ali from this one movie, it was basically like, what if we just see this side of him for a while? And to do that times 4 was such an amazing choice that, are there some flaws in there? Yes, it does have the one room problem. They actually made the room bigger than it actually is in real life. So, and then with the camera, they did their best to say, oh, it's claustrophobic, let's punch in. Or, oh, let's open it up. Let's use this section of the room now so that it feels like there's space. Let's go to the roof and make it seem like we're traveling to Cabo or something. Like they did anything they could. So yes, it did have the problem, but it's refreshing. And it's a beautiful piece. I went on a Ron Howard deep dive to wonder what the hell happened with Hillbilly Elegy, which is our next film that we'll be talking about. Weird time to gush me, Dave. But every movie for so long turned into like a GoldenEye or a Bond movie. I don't know if it was just because they were made by men, which I am a man too, but like A Beautiful Mind turns into a Bond movie. Like every movie just can't fucking help itself. And there's just like an action sequence or something. And this movie is just beautiful. And it's these 3 enormous dudes just having a nice moment together. And it's so interesting.
No, I like the point you made. I like that they did that with, like you've got 4 of what could be the most influential people of that time. Yeah. And they completely humanized them. Mm-hmm. They're just 4 guys hanging out in a hotel with you.
I like what you said about Muhammad Ali to Cassius Clay, because I know I made that joke about the fanboy outside, but Cassius Clay is our surrogate. He is the youngest one in the room, and he has the least experience with having an effect on society. He was just getting to that point. So it was also cool watching who might be the most iconic in our minds looking back, kind of learn from these older guys. Not too much older, but a little older, a little more experienced, way more opinionated on how they chose to make their stance. And you kind of get to follow with him. So it's always nice. It's always good writing to have someone in the room who is learning with you, especially when you're talking about ridiculous subject matter, like how do we change society and civil rights and stuff like that. So I think that was one reason why I felt like I was never getting preached at unless I was supposed to, when Malcolm was screaming at Sam Cooke and, you're kind of waiting for the fight. So I don't know. I just felt, again, it's very well written, which, I don't know if we give too much credit to the movie for that. The play is just super well written. But
before I throw in with my next thing, who has the dogs? Because that's going to show up in the recording. I feel like we need to talk about the dogs.
That's this house that I'm in right here. Yeah, for sure.
The dogs have to drink.
Who knows what the hell? Who knows?
Lapping up some beer.
Yeah.
As long as they're not pooping outside this door, I'll be happy.
And we don't know. Like Jeff said, we don't know if literally, all or any of this shit was talked about when those guys got together. We do know they were in that hotel room, but I mean, it's hard to imagine a world without what they did after this night. Right. It's hard to imagine Sam Cooke without that song. It's hard to imagine Malcolm X not leaving the nation of the Muslim Brotherhood after this. I know he was already kind of thinking about that. And it's just, there's so many things. I don't know if the world was changed drastically because of Jim Brown's transition into a film career, but there are these big things that these guys did after this, and it's just crazy to think that. I bet we can at least say that they influenced each other. It might not have been literally this night and literally these conversations, but their relationships, that humanity, they did affect each other. And it's lonely at the top. I've never been there, but that's what they say. And I would imagine they needed each other to really push against each other and challenge each other. Dave said it is.
Yeah.
Just to talk about briefly Kingsley Benadir.
Malcolm X. Yeah. He's the centerpiece of this film.
How do you play Obama and Malcolm X in 1 year?
Like that.
Yeah, like seriously, he can sell a scene with a look or a gesture. Like, it was a phenomenal performance, and I also really related to it because we've all got that one activist friend who just can't let it go, and everything is about that, and they have nothing else at this point.
This is good. I want to talk about this more because another thing that'll come up in the next film is the Christian values of the next film. So I wanted to ask you guys about. So Malcolm is the centerpiece of this, which is funny because they're all huge characters, but Malcolm organized this event, and I love the take they took on this because forget about the way the movie set the tone. Malcolm called for them. He knew they were only in town for the same night, one night for this fight. And after this fight, they were going to talk. He just wanted them to talk, and they were going to want to party. So you just put two and two together and you write the play. You don't ask what happened at that point. You just do it, and you assume that somebody, probably Jim Brown, probably Cassius Clay, are going to want to fucking celebrate. But Malcolm really had a purpose behind this, and that purpose was an obstacle. So how interesting is it that our person who set this whole night and made it happen is also sort of building in the antagonizing presence that is causing all of this conflict between all of the four of them. What's bringing them together is also what's kind of frustrating them, and it brings so much out. So sorry, can you say his name? Kingsley Ben-Adir nails that. But I would love to talk about the framing of him as the centerpiece and everybody moving around him. Did you get that? Because I kind of got that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, at some points they took turns. But most of the time it was definitely around him.
And did it bother you that he keeps basically it's whether it's about the benefits of being a Muslim or the benefits of basically putting everything out there and condemning everything to making your art activism. Yeah, which was very progressive for these guys.
Which kind of leads to the ending, which was powerful when you get to where they all they've moved on from that night and how they all ended up. And his is just fucking heartbreaking. He gets a thing thrown through his window, and the whole family is ready to go and evacuate at any moment, and they just fucking bail out into the street, and he's sitting there, and you can almost see the realization. It's like, this is my life now because I've stuck my neck out so far here, and this is the life of my family and children.
I got from him the final postscript quote, "This is the time for martyrs." That one that they read afterwards.
This got me good too, because they did the great thing when you just not withhold information necessarily, which is my JFK syndrome, but when you withhold a point of view, some form of reference. Sometimes in movies they try to give you too much context at the beginning. Throughout this movie, it is obvious that this could be a really awesome party if Malcolm X just wanted it to be. If he just had fucking vodka and strippers, it would be a vodka and stripper party. But because he doesn't drink and because he wants this to be a conversation, it is, and they're not happy about it. And then afterwards, you see he doesn't have that option anymore. And how heartbreaking that is to go through this film and be like, now I get it, because he knows that this was his last chance. He's not going to get a chance like this again, whether he knew he was going to die or what. But he's not going to have a chance to talk intimately with other people like this, because his whole life was just, basically staring down the barrel of the FBI. And man, it was there's a lot of fun in this movie, John, to what you said early on. A lot of fun, and that can't be diminished. But really, just the little tiny things at the end when you see Malcolm's life and you're like, holy shit, no wonder he was fighting so hard.
That's the thing as well. There's a lot of messages in here, a lot of subtlety that gives you, it informs you of what their lives are like. But occasionally it's underplayed with like humor or with like the camaraderie and that sort of thing, but the message still gets through, and that's what makes this such a beautifully directed film.
Yeah.
As powerful as those messages are, three white guys sitting here talking about this, of course, but as powerful as those messages are, I feel like one of the overwhelming messages, and Regina King didn't fall into the trap of letting this become sentimental. Look, we're all trying. I feel like one of the overall messages was that, you might lose friends over caring too much. You might lose certain relationships. You might lose your stance. You might lose your entire fucking platform if you let it get in the way of your humanity and your relationships and stuff. And I don't know. I do think that at the end of this, I felt like there was no sentimentality. There was this kind of sad realization that I had, which, I mean, how else could you look at that movement, that Malcolm may have unfortunately been right, that maybe they were not allowed to have the luxury of the good life, even though they were icons. That like, you have to speak up, you have to say something. I'm not gonna lie, the little scene where he plays the Bob Dylan song, and what's the name of that? What's the name of that song? The Answer Is Flowing in the Wind. Is that the actual name of that song?
Flowing in the Wind.
Thank you. And when he gives a speech about fuck that, I can't believe this white guy wrote this song. And I was kind of waiting for somebody to speak up. And then Sam Cooke says, I was mad when he wrote that song because it's fucking genius. It's fucking great. And I'm just mad I didn't write it yet. So I feel like when I finished this, there was a little bit of that happy tragedy, that feeling I love so much, where they all kind of realized it's not like, look, we're all doing our part and Malcolm, got us all going. There was this unfortunate truth that, like, at least I felt that they were trying to say that we can't afford not to be struggling. We have to be fighting for this all the time, whether or not we own our entire business, Sam Cooke, whether or not we can transition careers, Jim Brown, whether or not we can, win world championships. It doesn't really matter. We're still going to have to be fighting for this no matter what, which was, as much fun as we had. And as everything, I still agree with everything we said. There was still a very tragic tone at the very end of this for me. And not just because Malcolm ran out of the house with his family. There was it's never going to be over for these people, which is a real shame, but obviously that gave me a lot to think about. Like, how do I react to that?
There were definite things where they mentioned stuff, and I was like, "This is still happening now."
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah,
like,
sure.
It makes you think. It's doing exactly what it should do.
Another good movie to come out this year. What the fuck? How did that happen?
Oh my god, yeah. So we've highlighted Kingsley Ben-Adir as Malcolm X, Eli Gorey as Cassius Clay. Don't want to undercut Aldous Hodge's Jim Brown, who's a very important role in this movie. He's not happy about how this night is going. And I think that's important because it adds a ton of depth to this film. And he has the point, which is good to get across to Malcolm, but also comes back to him, where he's basically like, do you understand, Malcolm, that everybody's telling me who to be? And unfortunately, you're doing that to me right now. That's what I feel like you're doing. I feel like you're telling me how I need to behave. To be the antithesis of them telling me what to do is you telling me what to do. And I don't like it. I just want to have a party tonight, and then we can worry about this tomorrow.
Oh my God. His speech about, sometimes I wonder if you're doing this to prove it to black people, about the skin tone.
Yeah.
The light and dark, that speech he gave to him when they're alone. There's so many good moments. He also had a lot of levity. I feel like he had a lot of the funny lines.
Through that. Because he could have just been stuck in that trope the whole time, but he had a lot of really funny lines. But then, of course, we got to let's get to. So first of all, he has the musical element of this, where he sings a bunch in this. You see him at the Copa, and they take some liberties with some of the Copa stuff because he really was one of the biggest stars in the world. His first 20 songs were all top on the charts, at least in the top 100. He had his own record label by this point, as John had said. Leslie's he's in the award conversation, so let's do it. Like,
I must admit,
shit, right?
when he did that whole, it's great to be at the Copa and there were crickets. I'm like, oh, I've played those gigs.
I just wrote that. I don't even remember this. I said, yeah, oh my God. The way he shoves that guy off stage was incredible. I didn't know Sam Cooke was such a badass. So here he is with this buttery, sweet voice, but it was chippy. And it was just like a really, really three-dimensional, awesome character. When the
manager told him he bombed? In the dressing room afterwards.
Well, I said that he threw that guy off the stage, but yeah, the way he did that, and then afterwards they were like, "You did bomb, by the way."
One of the band members just calmly opens the door for him to throw this guy out, and just shuts the door.
Yeah,
it's like, that was.
I wasn't. I guess I am. I'm always rooting for Leslie Odom, but this we're watching this now after it's coming out that he's like the one that is getting the press, and he could very easily win this category if it's all about awards. But holy shit, like what so I just said that Aldous Hodge gives it with Jim Brown gives it depth, because immediately you now know that there's somebody who doesn't want to be there, or at least not doing it this way. And then you have other people, like you have a lot of different personalities, but there is an existential level of depth that Sam Cooke brings to this film, where it is timeless, and maybe it's just the musical element of it, but there is something about Leslie Odom's performance, but also the character of Sam Cooke, that takes this and makes it a time capsule film. Do you agree with that? Do you disagree? Is there anything else you guys want to say about Leslie Odom?
No, I think he was phenomenal. I like this whole cast was phenomenal. Do you guys have the Facebook chat up? We got a couple of comments on there. Yeah, Peter McLean's like, I was not a fan of this movie. The actors did an amazing job, but the script didn't quite work for me. Wow. And Glenn dropped in. Glenn!
Peter, this is a positive film criticism podcast. So
yeah,
Dave?
Yeah, Peter.
Thank you. And
Glenn was liked it a lot, but more distracted by the fact that it was based on a play than in Ma Rainey. Well, Glenn.
Yeah, I feel you, Glenn. I think I know what you mean, dude.
I hope he's got a beer
felt
handy.
like a play. Leslie. I mean, it does help that in the writing, Sam. I mean, kind of has a presence to him, and I think they do a good job with the way they framed his character and everything cinematically. But writing wise, like it does build to Malcolm X literally saying, "You literally have the biggest voice," like because you sing into a microphone and your music gets to go everywhere, and it built to. I know a change is going to come. Like it builds to that. So like it kind of is inescapable. So the real measure for me is that Leslie Odom rose to that. I thought his performance met what is required for the way that role is written.
The writing set the bar at the beginning with like Malcolm X is struggling for a voice. Cassius Clay is like, no one thought he was going to win. And Jim Brown is like about to bow out for a movie career. But Sam Cooke is like, did you ever make $250,000 playing a gig? I did.
Yeah,
and
get the fuck
so
out.
like he already has like that platform established.
My favorite, maybe my favorite scene in the movie, and you know, not to pick on it again, but I don't know if it would be hard to do this in theater. This is some movie stuff. Is when Malcolm is finally, they've already had two big arguments, and he's trying to make up with Sam Cooke, and he said, "You know, I've seen you 5 times," and he tells a story about when he saw him in Boston when the sound broke down.
That was cool.
And you know, it cuts to the live concert, and Sam Cooke does that's the sound of the man
Chain
working
gang.
on the train. Gets the whole, everybody
Chain
going
gang.
in the theater. It's very, very, I don't know. It's very cinematic comparatively to the rest of the way the rest of the movie was shot. And maybe that's why I was so moved by it. But that's kind of what I'm talking about. I kind of wanted a little bit more moments like that, just to kind of elevate it away from the room. Even though I know that was not the point of this, but he nailed it, dude. I mean, I think he's going to be a fucking superstar. Leslie Odom Jr. Like,
I hope so.
The sky's the limit.
Yeah, because he's not already. Nobody knows who the fuck that guy is.
I don't know. I mean, you know, I think he is. I think he's going to be even bigger than what he is now.
I'm gonna guess he did not get paid like a superstar for this movie, and that's about to
me too, dude.
Guess.
Yeah,
I bet none of them did.
And you know what the best part about this movie? Because in Ma Rainey, the one thing we did do is we definitely talked about how good like the white ensemble was. White ensemble was not too good in this movie. Beau Bridges was not good in this movie.
Oh my god, the Beau Bridges scene. Although I did like the thing that
I know it had to be. I know it had to be there, but
the thing I did though was like they played him as this sweet, like genteel old man as such, and everything.
It was well directed
till the end. Like until the end,
that line got me, dude. That moment got me. Yeah. I don't want to say what he says, but that got me.
Yeah, just
you don't. Do you not want to say it?
No, we do not. There's not a fucking buzzer hard enough for dropping that in the air. No, and no, but he literally it's a shocking moment, and I was like almost had to rewind it. I'm like, did he just say what I? Because you didn't see
character
it
is better. Character is better than the actor.
But
now,
again,
to be fair though, Michael Imperioli was awesome as Cassius Clay's somebody in his corner.
Yeah. And credits to that moment you were just talking about there, Dave. Credits to Regina, because that was one of the first opportunities I thought she had to really create tone for the way this film was going to watch. And I thought it did sit in that place where I had a little shock, but I also kind of laughed at how just matter of fact he said it, and the way Jim Brown just stands there and reacts like, what the fuck? But like it didn't turn it, the music didn't kick in with a slow push in. It didn't get too melodramatic.
No, it was just like, did he just fucking say that? And
He'll just fucking say
I had
it.
the same reaction. Like, I'm sitting there like, did he just fucking say what I think he said?
I'm sure Regina King, if she could have seen this in the movie theaters and festivals, she would have just waited around for that moment, and then she would have walked out of the theater. So I got him, and she would have walked out.
For sure.
Yeah. I mean, I can't wait for her next one. Like, if this is what she's turning out for her debut, I can't wait for the next one.
Tone, style, quality.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to say, if we're getting picky on this film, it's because we're watching it in the context of award season stuff. If this came out last summer, we would just have sat back and enjoyed it. I really think that this is fantastic. I hope Regina King gets nominated. The BAFTAs, she's nominated for everything. So let's cross our fingers that this sets her on the map, and then she gets to do whatever she wants next. And please God, don't let it be a Disney movie. I can't believe like Chloe Zhao is getting into that. Like, come on, people, get out of here.
I don't know. I have high hopes for Eternals. Like, I think it's a all
right.
Yeah, let's not go into that right now.
Anything else you guys want to say?
No, I think
give it a watch.
I think we've definitely covered.
It's on Prime.
Amazon Prime. Yeah.
All right. Well, with that, we're going to take a quick break, and we are going to see you soon to talk about Ron Howard's turn at Hillbilly Elegy in a second, film fans. And we're back.
We're back.
Oh my gosh, people. Thank you so much for spending some time in Miami with us. But we are headed up to Ohio, people. We are up to the part of Ohio with Confederate flags. That's right. We are looking at Hillbilly Elegy. I keep saying allergy. Hillbilly Elegy. Which somehow was directed by Ron Howard. I did not know that Ron Howard directed this until I was watching this, and then I it really changed everything.
Really, because he was nominated for a Razzie for Worst Director.
I didn't check that before I had seen the film, as you now know. Anyway, Hillbilly Elegy is interesting. It has a 6.8 on IMDb, which is higher than a lot of movies I like, and it has a 38 Metacritic score. It has a 25% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes, but an 85% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. So what Reddit thread got people to give this a high rating?
Yeah.
I have no idea how that happened. Okay.
Hillbilly Elegy is the movie GameStop.
This is starring Amy Adams, Glenn Close, and this guy Gabriel Basso, who was sort of a child star. Haley Bennett, Frida Pinto makes an appearance. Haven't seen her in a while. You got Bo Hopkins,
and the kid. You got to give it up to the kid.
That kid,
as Talos, wonderful. He was good.
Young JD. All right, so this is based on a memoir about a guy named JD Vance who just loves himself.
Fuck you, dude.
I got my finger on the trigger right now.
I'm kidding. Anyway, so this guy put himself through Ohio State and then Yale Law School. And then he gets a call that his mom had overdosed on heroin, so he moves back to Ohio while he's at Yale. And this says here he reflects on 3 generations of family history and his own future. I will say this became a huge campaign piece in 2016 about why the Democrats had left the middle of America wide open and they didn't understand their struggles. And he did try to run for Senate and Congress. He's been trying to run for office for a while. But anyway, I digress. Forget about the politics stuff. JD Vance, was an investment banker after this movie, made a lot of money. And now he's trying to use some of that money that he made working with VCs and in the investment capital world to get people off of addiction because he really thinks that it's tearing apart the middle of the country. So he wrote a memoir and it came out in 2015.
Yeah, definitely a part of it.
I don't know whether
that's true.
I don't know whether everyone on the stream has noticed, but every time Jeff mentions politics, I drink.
No, I'll stay out of it. The only, you know what? Fuck you. Okay, the only politics I'm going to talk about is this. All right, it has nothing to do with national politics. This is nominated for 3 Razzies. It's nominated for worst screenplay, worst director for Ron Howard, which, let's be real, he turned this into a Netflix made-for-TV Hallmark Christmas movie, which it did not deserve. It deserved better than that. All right, so there you go. So you got Ron Howard. Sorry, Ron. Guy gave us Apollo 13. And then Glenn Close for worst supporting actress. Now, I'm going to take a step back here, okay? This is Glenn Close, people. Let's just think about this. So Judi Dench for Artemis Fowl she was almost asking to be nominated for a Razzie because she was making some choices with both middle fingers wide up in the air, and she did not give the slightest bit of a fuck. And she was like, "Give me a Razzie. I don't give a fuck." All right, Ides of March are coming for you, motherfucker.
Hang on, wait a second. Was Judi Dench in the final list?
No, she wasn't. But but I'm talking about like legends who would be nominated for Razzies. Robert Downey Jr. was nominated for Dolittle because the dude literally had 3 years of delays from this film and still didn't learn a Welsh accent. So like, yeah, you get nominated for a Razzie for that. His accent,
I'm not even buzzing that.
His accent is nominated for a Razzie. He deserves a Razzie, and he knows it. Deep down inside, he knows it. Glenn Close gave us I Will Not Be Ignored. Glenn Close is a Tony winner. Glenn Close gave us Albert Nobbs, people. She is a legend and she is a hero. So you really got to dig deep to give her a Razzie nomination. And in this film, are you there? Her being on the short list makes me want to root for the movie. Like it almost, I feel like there's a different cut of this movie where she could single-handedly save it. I don't know what that cut is. I can't for the life of me find what that cut is, but it is not her fault. If they literally just went, you know what, fuck it, whatever she's doing is our movie, they could have turned this into a really, really, really good movie. The kid comes home and he got an A on an algebra test, and she gave us Forrest Gump's Is He Normal or Is He Like Me? Just because he got an A on an algebra test. She kicked people off her stoop like she was Clint Eastwood. Got in movies, not when he's talking to
also
like an
drinking,
empty chair.
smoking, cursing like a sailor, and quoting Terminator 2. Come on.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely crossed Glenn Close's mind that this could be her Oscar film. And I feel like that is the only reason. Like she thought she went supporting role, Robin Williams. That is the only reason that you would consider her. This is not her fault. This is so ridiculous and so stupid that she's on this list. And the worst part about it, other than this podcast, nobody's even talking about it. So what a waste of a vote. You got Rudy Giuliani, you got Mike Lindell. You have what an interesting way of treating the Razzies. You have a CGI dog is nominated for a Razzie, and Glenn Close is nominated for a fucking Razzie. This whole segment we did makes me sick to my stomach just knowing that Glenn Close ended up on this list. Bullshit. Yeah, don't be ridiculous. Having said that, we're going to do another Razzie film next week, but
yeah, no,
right.
I don't agree with anything you just said. No, I'm kidding. I agree with everything you just said.
Okay, so who wants to talk about Hillbilly Elegy?
Dave, what'd you think, dude? I'm very curious specifically what you think too. Not to pimp you out, but I don't know if anyone has ever noticed Dave's accent, but he's not from America, and I'm curious if this felt like it was hyperbolic, or if you felt like it was a little too something for you, or if it moved you. What was your reaction?
I loved this. I thought this was phenomenal. I thought this was phenomenal. I'm like, what the fuck is this doing on the Razzies? Actually, to be honest, you know what? Fuck you, Razzies. Like, Glenn Close acted her ass off.
And you know what? This is for the Razzies. Buzz the Razzies, dude.
Okay, yeah. Fuck you, Razzies. I mean, when you get to the end and they show what the people actually look like, and you see what the grandma looked like, and Glenn Close like altered her face to look like this woman.
She nailed it. Amy Adams
is amazing. Amy Adams was phenomenal. The kid was phenomenal. In my opinion, the whole film was phenomenal. Some of the themes are great. And I'm sorry, whoever the Razzie voters are, I'm coming for you. I will fucking find you. I have a very unique set of skills.
Dave, I could not agree more.
I'm with you about this, but are you fucking? Can you guys just tell me really quick? Are you fucking with me, or is this
not at all?
I know that
I agree that
it shouldn't be on the. I agree that it shouldn't be on the Razzie list.
I am gonna go.
You found the film power.
Yes.
If Glenn Close doesn't get a nomination tomorrow, I'll be very, very.
No, Glenn Close deserves a nomination, but I'm saying the film. You found the film power.
I did.
I wanted to put this caveat out there because I wanted to ask Dave what he thought first, because I'm from the South. Like, I know these people. I'm from a smaller town in the South. I'm not joking. I know these fucking people. That grandma, Glenn Close's character, looked like exactly and acted and talked and behaved exactly like one of the kids' grandmas that I grew up with. I mean, I know these people. And there are a few sentimental lines. There really are. There are 3 or 4 lines and moments that are a little too sentimental, a little too on the nose. We're hill people. We honor our dead. There are a couple moments like that.
That was great.
But none of those moments took away from the power that this film did. I was actually moved multiple times by this film. I do not understand why it's getting the shit it got. I thought it was well paced. I thought technically Ron Howard, because Jeff, I'm glad you brought that up. He did get kind of in. Do you guys remember when we were talking in the summer of the franchise Face Off, and I said I just watched Ron Howard's masterclass, and he talked about how he thinks every film needs to have a little bit of mystery. So Jeff, I'm glad you made that comment about how every film kind of turned into a Bond film. I don't think he did that with this one. I think he broke it down a little bit more, and I think he got to a real human place. And I can't say enough about the performances. I mean, that kid was fucking incredible. Amy was fucking incredible, dude.
Let's face it. I watch a lot of Marvel shit. Watch a lot of sci-fi stuff. I don't delve into the deep dramas a lot. And for me to come out swinging so hard for this film is this is really, really good work. This is a family in free falling collapse in full color, and it's not fun to watch. But it's not fun to watch for all the right reasons. This shit is happening. And
look, we are a positive film podcast. I'm so happy that you guys are behaving this way. I'm just a little surprised.
Let me ask the question that I think I'm a little nervous to ask it, and I'm not. We should be totally comfortable to talk about whatever we want here. We're being positive. I think this film may have gotten shat on because it came out in the summer of 2020. And I think we all know what I mean when I say that.
It's polarizing because of that. Because I expect,
yes,
I expect a lot of people to love this movie hands down. I thought it turned into a Hallmark movie. I thought the last 5 minutes, the whole segue with the credit roll and I wrote down, it says she was sober for 6 years, and the most aggressively Christian rock emo song comes on, and it just made me laugh. So I didn't, which is no, and I'm okay. I'm not saying that's a problem because I know that works for some people. I went to college in North Carolina. I obviously didn't grow up there, but I feel like I know, I get the vibe. I think at least I tried to immerse myself in it, but I'm just surprised. That's all.
We're gonna go to the chat for a second because Glenn has weighed in and said that Glenn Close was the best thing in a mediocre movie. She doesn't deserve scorn. Peter then weighed in saying he loved this movie a lot. Glenn Close and Amy Adams were amazing. Glenn has then weighed in, gone, the plot device of the job interview he had to get back to was contrived and unnecessary. This is based on his memoir, isn't it?
It's based on his memoir, yeah.
So it's a true
Glenn,
story.
that didn't bother me, dude. Glenn, that didn't bother me. I know what you mean. In a sense, I could understand how you felt like that was the thing, but I mean, it did create some urgency, which it'll take me back to. I like the way they cut this film. Because if he didn't have that device to push his timeline in the present day, the 2014 or 11 or whenever it was, I think it would have felt kind of flashbacky, maybe a little montagey. So I needed something like that to keep the urgency of the pace moving forward, and it did work for me. I could see why it bothered you, but it didn't bother me.
For me, it was like, well, okay, he's slowly rediscovering the family and everything he's distanced himself from, which, I relate to it a little bit. It's like, it was a whole is he or isn't he? Is he going to go or is he going to stay? Is he going to give up this whole thing? Because I didn't know what the outcome was.
And I think the biggest, I totally agree, Dave. And I think the biggest message that I did want to bring up and ask you guys as you felt, these two friends of mine have made movies with me before. I love this theme, and I thought they handled this theme really well. And I think it's very important because it was all I think a lot of us could think about over this past year, and especially over the Trump era, the theme of shame. This guy trying to outrun his past and trying to transcend out of this white trash background that he feels like he came from. And do you need to have shame for that? And how do we move past it? I think that transcends race, demographics, class. I think everyone can relate to that. And I do feel like it could bother me if we were to be able to look at some statistics and realize, okay, some people talked some shit about this movie right when it came out and nobody watched it. I think there are lessons here. Responsible audiences work both ways. Just because this is about some, poor white people from the coal mining country of Kentucky and Ohio doesn't mean that there isn't something we can learn about what everybody struggles with when they're trying to better themselves, which is, I know what you mean, Jeff. It's a little TV movie, but it didn't get in the way for me.
My biggest question of this was this a little too close to home for people to process at this point in time? Did it reflect on something that a lot of America just doesn't really want to acknowledge as real?
I think so. That's why I wanted to ask you if you felt that way, because I felt that way, but I know these people again, so I didn't know if I had too much bias. Jeff, growing up in a different kind of area, like, did you feel like you were pretty removed from this, or did you feel like it was a little cliche? Like, what rubbed you the wrong way with it? Was it the tone?
Tone. It felt like I watched a couple of the Netflix like Christmas made for like the Hallmark movies. I watched the Hallmark movies, and it had the same tone as those movies. I'm not saying it's on the level of them, because they had very little plot, and so they just
and the performances could not have been as strong, right?
I mean, I know, like the sentimentality was the only vehicle to get that movie through. I'm not saying it was that, but it was pretty close. I wrote down. So one scene. I don't know. I don't want to be negative. I don't care.
No, come at it. No, come at it. I'm just curious.
There's a scene. So I know what I said about the podcast host at the beginning of this episode, who was on here, and he kept making everything seem personal. Like he kept talking. Jesus, John. He kept talking about movies, and it seemed he was like he hated Green Book, for instance, because he was like, they shouldn't have made that movie. Why did they make that movie? And it's like, that's such a weird take. Like,
wow,
they made I don't like, you know what I mean? It's like that kind of critic. It's the same critic.
Yeah.
Everything seems personal. Wait, hold on. And then, but I don't want to become that. But there's a conversation about how to say the word syrup between the guy and the girl. And because you're movie people, the scene is really just to get them close together, because he's been through a lot and she's been through a lot, and she's his glue.
Definitely to make her likable. Yes.
It's to make her likable. It's to make him like likable and have like that intimate moment, maybe the future and the family, like what's coming next. And you could see it in a TV show all the time. It's just like the two of them joking about how to say syrup or syrup. I've been watching it. It is just a vanilla scene that can literally be in any movie. There's nothing in that scene. There's nothing in that scene that can be taken out of this movie and put in a different movie. I've been watching RuPaul UK, and he says something like, "Okay, if you don't have money, it's a fantastic show, you dick." Okay. And he says,
if you don't have money, that would agree with you.
And he says, if you don't have money and you have to shop at H&M to get your outfits, that's fine, but you better glitter the fuck out of it and make it your own. That's a RuPaul quote. In this movie, fine, have a syrup quote about how to say syrup, but it's been said so many times that to put it in this movie with no connection to this movie at all, other than the fact that these characters are in the rest of the movie, it just makes it so vanilla that the scene could be cut and you wouldn't know it was missed.
I
know you could say there,
but
I know, and that's the point. Jeff, it just didn't feel interesting.
That's what I was saying. There are a handful of moments and or scenes that do fall into that a little bit. It just overall, it didn't take away from my experience enough for me to say that's why this movie didn't work.
Great.
I think it didn't. I don't know if it benefited from those moments. I do agree with you on that. I think especially early on, there's a moment when he's sitting around. He's going to get his first round of interviews, folks. He's going to Yale Law School. He's trying to get a summer internship at a really top firm. He's going to first round of interviews, or he's hoping to get a final interview. And he's at this gala, basically, this like conference night. So he's sitting around the table, two partners and a few other candidates for the job. And there's a moment where he says, I'm from here. Here's my story, Kentucky. And this guy makes the comment about rednecks. Is it weird going home? Do you feel like you're surrounded by rednecks? And everyone kind of like gets awkward, and he kind of pushes back and everyone lowers their head. So there were a few directorial moments that I do blame Ron Howard for. I think a little more nuance would have been more powerful. It's like blatant racism is in a way, bear with me folks, is in a way less offensive than nuanced racism, where you're like, motherfucker, like you have to actually discover it and you realize, oh my God, they have to deal with that every day. So in this case, it's not racism, it's prejudice. Yeah. So in this case, it's prejudice, not racism, but it didn't get in the way for me. And I want to swing back to the performances. I know who said this? Was it Glenn or did Jeff? Or were you quoting somebody from the pod that she could have turned this mediocre film into something more?
That was Glenn. Glenn said that. Yeah. And I agree.
My favorite part about this movie, other than the pacing and just in general, the way he cut this whole thing together, was that Amy Adams and Glenn Close are giving like monster performances. Amy is at a 10 for like so much. She's going back and forth from like a 6 to a 10 of like really.
Is it bipolar? Is it addiction? Like
who knows, right?
It's great. Both
of them, the way they play it. I think the way it was directed, I want to believe they had a conversation about it. The way it's filmed and the way it's cut, there is so much humility that I never felt like either one of them was grandstanding ever. I was never waiting for them to get on their soapbox and scream, which is why I teared up several times during this movie, and you nailed it. That was a really good one. Whenever Glenn did have a little bit of focus on her in a nice close-up, she wasn't doing anything outlandish, and you got to discover those moments with her. When she has here's a perfect example when she has there is a Meals on Wheels moment where a guy comes and delivers some food, and she just steps back and says, I'm not going to overplay this motherfucker. I'm not going to overplay it.
Yeah.
The actor knew that. The character knew that. And I literally sat up, and I was, there was one of like 4 or 5 moments where I teared up. I just feel like it was,
Yes.
No, I'm happy.
Yeah, no, I get your point exactly. I just want to throw it back to the the viewer chat at the moment, because for anyone listening on the podcast, if you join us live on Sunday nights, we do interact with you guys. Glenn has thrown in to chime in apropos of nothing. He grew up maybe an hour from where this was shot.
Who did?
And Glenn, and he agrees with what Jeff is saying. It felt very movie of the week.
But he loved this movie a lot, though. Oh, no, Peter loved it. Sorry, Glenn.
Yeah,
yes.
Peter loved it.
Yeah,
Glenn didn't. Glenn felt the devices like a ticking time bomb of the job interview, and the syrup scene felt like screenwriting 101 to inject extra drama when there was plenty of drama to be found organically.
Yeah.
Now, I want to bring I'd like to bring that comment around to the point that no character in this is likable until you inject those scenes.
No, keep going.
But back to my thing. If you shop at H&M, you got to glitter the fuck out of it to make it your own. I don't think they made it their own, but that's just me. And because the main character here is the least interesting one to me. The little kid was awesome, but the adult guy is basically just a surrogate for the plot. I didn't see anything that he did that moved me, and I don't think that's the actor's fault.
That wasn't right to the end. Right to the end, they started to introduce stuff to turn him around and make him a little bit likable. But yeah.
Great. He had tough jobs because, again, a lot of exposition in that one scene with all of the lawyers, the highbrow, the upper crust of the Northeast. And then he basically has to say, oh, we don't go by rednecks. I actually think it's a positive that I'm from the sticks. Like, yes, he has a lot of work to do. I'm not saying that he does it. And I'm not hating the movie. I'm glad that you guys are talking me into this. And I hope Glenn Close wins a fucking Oscar for this role.
I do too.
Which would be really great. I'm a little surprised, but it's good.
It is one of those things where I think
we're redeeming this movie.
In the light of the theme of our podcast and trying to be positive, but I also feel like the more movies I watch and the more things I get, I'm going to reiterate what Jeff was saying. I try to think less about I liked this, I didn't like that, and try to understand if I have the ability to switch gears and appreciate what somebody is doing. So Glenn, I agree with you, dude. I probably would have liked this even more if it was grittier and it was a little bit more realistic, but I switched gears into whatever they were trying to do, and it didn't bother me. I just had to accept the fact that that's how he's going to tell this story. What did he say?
No, Glenn's like, I think I like this movie a little more than Jeff and a lot less than John and Dave. Glenn?
Yeah.
I really was avoiding the true story element of it, which goes back to critics and why critics hate movies like this, is because they know the backstories too well. And I'm trying, so I have all this stuff about the town that it's from and the politics and I really don't want to touch it. I promise you, I wasn't trying to think about all the Brett Kavanaugh jokes, which I stand by because come on, this is pouring to Brett Kavanaugh. Let's be real. Sorry.
Peter's weighed in the husband death scene with Glenn Close there.
Oh my God, dude. I was going to mention that scene too, Peter.
Yeah.
Holy shit, dude.
Get out of our head, Peter.
Okay. Dude. I love that. All right. So very un-TV movie. Like I will say this is one thing that confused me about the way they decided to put this movie together in assembly with the editing, even though I love the pacing, like I said. There are some things that I felt like we did discover through the way they cut it. I don't think they showed us too much of their past. I don't think they showed us too much of Amy Adams' childhood. We had to kind of infer some of that stuff, which I thought was really well done. And then they have some syrup moments and some things like that are a little in your face and on the nose. So I'm going to give you room there. I do understand it did feel like it wasn't quite on the same level of maturity with some of the choices in assembly. But again, it didn't take it away from me, though. I didn't care. And by the time it was over, I was moved. And motherfucker, the casting was fantastic. They look like these people. I mean,
right.
They were all so talented, and they looked just fucking like them. It was fucking crazy, dude. I don't know. I don't know if
the memoir does this, but I like that it opens in Mississippi and then goes to Ohio. I like that they made
Kentucky.
I wrote this down and I didn't get to the top of my list. Yeah, sorry about that.
My question, and this is mainly an excuse to bring up the poster, but like, why do we have Glenn Close and Amy Adams on the poster and not the kid or the guy who was the lead?
Because I think people were afraid to take a chance on this subject material if they didn't know there were two huge stars in it. Honestly, and I think that's the problem with why they're having trouble getting people to watch this movie. And no offense, America, but I think this is our fucking quicksand. I don't think we should be so ready to dismiss any story or any subject matter because of our political prejudice. And I do think whether or not you like this movie or not, I still think movies like this are worth giving it a shot because there are people. Isn't all we need to know? It was the best, it's a good book. It doesn't necessarily mean it's great. Stars we trust and a director we trust. Isn't that good enough? Let's take a chance and let's learn something. We can decide whether or not we liked it, but I think we need to give it a chance. I think we need to give it a shot. I went into this carrying a lot of skepticism. I'm not going to lie. I didn't watch this movie when it came out this summer after I watched Ron Howard's Masterclass because I heard some iffy things.
Yeah, me too.
And I regret that I did that. I feel like an asshole.
I feel like some of the reviews didn't give it a chance. Wrote in the post we had this week advertising this movie, and it was like some of them called it like irresponsibly bad and the worst film of 2020. No.
What the fuck are they talking about? We have watched some of the worst films of 2020. This was miles away from some of the things we've seen.
Yeah.
Not even in the same class, dude. What was the name of Anne Hathaway's first one that we can't remember the name of?
The last thing he wanted. The last thing he wanted.
Oh my God, you guys.
That's both of you.
Yeah, I'm Drew. Thank you. Fuck the Razzies, dude. I don't know about you guys, but
I mean, the Razzies used to be fun, but like this one's put a sour taste in my mouth. I'm like, this was not deserved at all.
Me too. I know. I feel like this movie maybe because I think about this every week, every time we watch them. But I know up till now we've kind of agreed that like that wasn't very good, but this really put an exclamation point on it for me. I really don't know how I feel about the Razzies existing at all. Like, what are they benefiting from? Just making fun of people who tried their hardest to make something? I mean, we all know those movies weren't great without giving them You Suck award.
In some cases, it was fun. Like when Halle Berry turned up to collect her Catwoman Oscar in person, it was like, yeah, we all know that did not go well. Right. Catwoman was terrible.
Sure.
Like,
and Peter McClane, come at me. Did Prince really deserve all those Razzies for Purple Rain? I don't know. Like, we all know what that movie was. Like,
some things are fun. I think
buzz him.
I think it's good to be a check on Sia with the controversy and just to like solidify that moment in history. It's good to be a check on the Robert Downey thing where he very clearly cashed out and just learn that Welsh accent. Like I saw one episode of The Crown and there were 1,000 people that spoken Welsh. Like just get it down. Yeah, like dude, if you don't learn a Welsh accent, like
what did you say? This film was delayed 2 or 3 years, and he still didn't learn the accent.
He was like, "Oh, I got an extra 6 months. Fuck, what am I going to do with that time?" So yeah, get a Razzie, but this is ridiculous. Like this is not a platform to be an asshole. That's not what. Or I guess it is.
I feel like some of the voters might. Like I'm starting a campaign right now that Glenn Close will not get this Razzie. I'm starting a campaign right now. We're coming out.
She already got the Razzie.
She's nominated. But she will not get
no, she's not going to win. No, she's not going to win.
She will not get the Razzie.
How can Anne? Yeah, it's not Anne, but who are I have it right here. The other supporting actor supporting actress nominations are
Lucy Hale, Maggie Q.
Maggie Q, Kristen Wiig and Wonder Woman. Go fuck yourself, Kristen Wiig. That was not that bad at all. And Maddie Ziegler in music. I just come on.
Okay, Maddie
Ziegler is young.
We'll find out.
She'll have it, but. She'll have it, but in a way, I feel bad for her because she was cast. As an actor, you get cast, you say yes. Like I know she didn't. She shouldn't have done that. But
there have been so many times when people have turned her role going no.
Look, I know she's young and wealthy and stuff, but like I'd feel a little bad if she got it for some reason. And it's not just because I've seen Dance Moms.
How fucking cool would it be? How fucking cool would it be if Glenn Close came out and won the fucking Oscar after they talk shit about this movie so much all year?
Yeah,
I think that would be fucking awesome.
I would love to see her walk up.
She might, because
if that happens, like if she gets the Razzie and then
Peter's
wins the Oscar,
like, no.
Yeah, I want to see her turn up at the Oscars and smash that Razzie to pieces on stage.
Yeah,
well, it's going to be virtual, but yeah, I wish if Olivia
do it in the house while she's baked.
I'm going to feel bad, and I love Olivia Colman. But I hope Olivia Colman doesn't win again. Okay, now we're off script here, so we're going to do this again. We're going to do this on YouTube right now or Facebook or whatever we do, but we got to round this episode up. Yeah. Let's give the people what we want for next week. I think we redeemed Hillbilly Elegy. No thanks to me. I'm one of those GOP senators that voted against the bill and then is going home and being like, yeah, you guys get your unemployment checks. Okay, it's not political. So next week, we are doing the U.S. versus Billie Holiday, which is available.
You're welcome, Peter.
And then
so excited.
We are spending money to rent separately. So we're giving them 3 times as much money.
And they're charging $1 more than everyone else. They're charging $1 more than any of the other Razzie rentals.
Yep, because Kate Winslet, Golden Globe nominee, brings in the big bucks here. Or they just don't want people to see this movie who are going to shit on it, like maybe us. I don't know. We're going to try to redeem it because that's our job. We're talking about music, people. Sia's music.
Watch it at your peril, from what I've heard.
Kate Winslet. Yeah, pay $6 and then have some fun with us next week. All right, people, so that's what we're doing. Any final words before we send the people off into the abyss?
This has been fun.
This was probably my favorite week we've had so far in terms of 2 movies. I enjoyed both of these movies, and I recommend everybody go out and watch both of them.
That's it. That's it. We're going to see you guys next week. Thank you so much for joining in. We'll talk about the Oscar nominations maybe next week, but you'll know what they are by the time you hear this. See you soon, film fans.
Woo. Well, close.